Today on the Relaxed Luddite Says podcast, I am going to be discussing my search for single-purpose items and a couple of other things as well, so go ahead and stick around. Let's start with my reversion to a simpler time and discuss my search for single-purpose items, why I enjoy them, and why I have been going on this journey. I should preface this rant by saying I don't actually think that I'm a Luddite. I do not fear technology. I do not avoid technology. As you know, because I'm recording a video podcast, I have a new computer. I use technology and benefit greatly from the technological advances that are available to us. So I am not in whole a Luddite, but over the last 6 months or a year, I have been on this journey to avoid using my smartphone, to avoid using my iPad, to avoid using these devices that are technologically incredible. The ability to have a video camera, a photo camera, a voice recorder, a web browser, a dictionary, a note-taking device in your pocket is one of the greatest things in the history of humanity. But at the same time, these devices are not without their fault. I think they can, and in many cases do, have negative impacts on individuals. That's one of the reasons why I try to limit my use of a smartphone. But there are many other reasons why I try to replace the functionality, the amazing functionality and technology in a smartphone, with older technology, with single-purpose items. First one, I want to be more intentional. If I want to take a note and I pull out my smartphone, I may get distracted. I may end up on YouTube. I may end up downloading a podcast. But if I have an idea and I pull out a pad of paper and a pen, that is being much more intentional. I don't have any of those distractions. And when I am writing that note, I am writing that note. I am nowhere else. I don't have anything else going on. I'm not stressing out about my social media followers. I am solely writing a note. I am logging how much I ate. Oh, that's why you're being a fatty. Because you ate 2 burgers. Stop it. Oh, you lent yourself this much money from this other bank account. You need to pay that back. And I do have a note there. Okay, I need to pay myself back that much money. It is being significantly more intentional. If I were to pick up a book and read, I am making the intention, I am making the decision to read that book. It is not, oh, I have a few minutes down, what can I do? Oh, there's nothing on social media. I guess I'll open up the Kindle app and read a little bit. I am making the decision to read that book. I already alluded to it, the lack of distractions. It leads to less wasted time. When I am on my smartphone, when I am on my iPad, I may have my note app up, but then I'll get notifications. You got an email, there's a new podcast to download. Oh, one of the YouTube channels you subscribe to just released a new video. Oh, somebody just went live. There's this constant desire from these companies to pull you in because your attention is a commodity. And they want you to use their app because they want to earn money off of you. So by eliminating the use or limiting the use of these smart devices, the smartphones, the iPads, the computers, the social medias, it allows me to waste less time, have less distractions, have less people, less companies trying to draw my attention to them, and get directly to work. Focus on exactly what I am working on. But there's also less obsolescence with this older technology, which is crazy to me. If you have a smartphone, if you get 5 years of support out of it, if you get 5 years of use out of it, that is a miracle. That is a very rare occurrence. I know I won't shut up about it. I am still using the iPhone X, which I got in 2017. So I have received 6 years of use out of this, which is very rare. And it is rumored, they are discontinuing support of it, operating system support of it this year. So 6 years of use, that's incredible. But here, in my hand, I shouldn't say here because this is an audio podcast, I have a calculator. There are no software updates. There are no security flaws in this. It is a very simple device, and as long as the battery doesn't die, as long as the solar cell doesn't die, as long as I don't throw this off of a balcony, this will function for another 25 years. God willing, it will function for another 25 years. A book, unless it burns up in a fire, or some dictatorial maniac comes in and gathers every single copy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to burn them, this is not going to be obsolete as long as my eyes are functioning, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be a thing, but I will be able to read that book. It will not become obsolete. And because this older technology was designed without the same connectivity as a modern smartphone, you don't have to worry about that constant update. That allows you to use it for a much longer time, to spend less money and develop enjoyment. And I hate to say this because it sounds so materialistic, but relationships or memories with these items. You could read the same Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy copy for decades. This Casio G-Shock I'm wearing is largely unchanged from the 1984 design. There has been iterative updates over the last, 40 years almost? That's insane. So it is largely unchanged, and people wear G-Shocks for decades, maybe 10 years. And then you could just replace the resin strap and you're good, or buy a new case and you're good. The movement will be fine as long as it doesn't have a corroded battery in it. I have only had this Sony voice memo recorder for 3 months at this point. There are no software updates. There is no Wi-Fi. I don't need to worry about a new Wi-Fi protocol coming out. I don't need to worry about a certain Bluetooth frequency becoming illegal to use. This is just a simple voice recorder. I turn it on and I record. That's the entire function of it. It does have a little USB stick that pops out so I can plug it into my computer. But that's about it. Very basic, very bare bones stuff. And that is why I have avoided using my smartphone, and over the last year or so, I have been trying to replace a lot of the functions that I use on my smartphone with physical items. Oh, there's one last thing that I thought about. Although this technology is old, in many cases it is better designed. It is more usable. A calculator, for example. First off, an iPad doesn't even have a calculator app. What gives? But secondly, if you actually touch type on a calculator, I find that impossible to use on a smartphone because it's just a touchscreen. With a physical calculator, you can feel the buttons and actually do some kind of touch typing on it to add a bunch of stuff up. You could even subtract a bunch of stuff. You could multiply. You could even divide. It is amazing how much more useful some of these physical items are because they are designed for one use and one use only. And that means the people who are designing it need to make damn sure that it does that one thing as good as it possibly can be done. And that is the final reason that I will give you. So a few of the items that I have reverted to. I do have the physical notebook and the physical pen because this is something I learned about myself years ago. Actually writing something down, I am much more likely to remember it as opposed to typing it on a computer. I already shared the actual calculator, the physical calculator. I have a number of these on my desks. A voice memo recorder, a Sony mono voice recorder, so I can avoid having distractions while I'm trying to come up with a song and a melody and stupid lyrics to sing about during a microphone review. I will do that. What's this current one? How's the drive work? You must disclose. Terrible. But it's just me goofing off trying to come up with some kind of melodies and lyrics about aliens. And I don't have to worry about a little notification bell going off and distracting me and making me lose that idea that I had. Physical books. The smell is just something special. I'll tell you what, Kindles don't smell like anything. Maybe child labor. I don't know if I can say that. Probably some kind of unethical labor practices is what the Kindle smells like. But a book, that smells like dead trees. And that's amazing. A standalone podcast player, a tiny little thing. It does podcast playing well. And I don't have this constant desire to, I don't like this one. I'm going to go search for a new podcast. I subscribe to the podcast that I subscribe to for a very specific reason. I am going to listen to them. I will make it through them. And now that I do 1x playback, I am fine with the fact that some of the functionality that is better on the smartphone apps isn't as good on this standalone dedicated podcast player. The playback speed, faster, slower, sounds terrible, doesn't have chapter markers, doesn't have any of that. It is very basic. I would love to hear if you have tried to avoid your smartphone use and what kind of items you would like to replace to avoid using your smartphone as much. Let me know in the comments on YouTube. Now let's jump to what I have been testing, and you have been listening to it. This microphone and this interface are back for one last blowout. I am on the Behringer XM8500 running over an Amazon Basics XLR cable, which is very microphonic, into the Behringer UM2. That's right. And this time, I am not using a foam windscreen because I found that those foam ball windscreens killed way too much high end. Just killed the treble and the air on this microphone, which is already kind of limited. This microphone does not need you to roll off all of that information and just make it sound like this, because then you got to EQ the hell out of it. So I am testing my microphone technique because the Behringer XM8500 is stinky with plosive rejection. Have I popped the microphone? I don't think I have. I am monitoring on more expensive headphones. No, these were free, sent to me by road, so I am still on the budget track. Don't at me as I record on $1,000 cameras in 4K, which was a request. The reason I am on this microphone setup again, I am finally going to make my video, which is, what was I going to call it? What's the clickbait thing? Using affordable gear is fine, something like that. Affordable gear is sufficient. Affordable gear is good enough. I haven't decided on the title yet. But the reason I am finally doing it, I finally got around to making a full song using the XM8500 and the Behringer UM2 and an Amazon Basics cable. And I even made the huge mistake of recording it in 44.1 kilohertz because I forgot to check before I recorded all of the guitar. So instead of having it in 48 kilohertz, 44.1. I'm going to tell you something very embarrassing. Years and years ago, this must have been 2010. I'm going to share a couple. I'll share a couple embarrassing stories after I finish talking about this. So how I used the XM8500 and the UM2. The XM8500 without the ball on it is what I used for every single electric guitar track. Every single electric guitar was recorded with that. For vocals, XM8500, no windscreen, no nothing. Every single time, running into the UM2. No cloud lifter, no FET no nothing. For the bass guitar, DI directly into the instrument input. No clipping, no issues. And then I used the Logic Pro built-in raw modern bass setting and then added a bit of clip distortion to try to get a bit more blend between the electric guitars, which are overdriven, and the bass, so it doesn't sound as twangy and bright. And that's what I did. That is how I used this setup. Is it the greatest? Oh, if you want to listen to it, it's called Man in Black. And go to bandrewplays.com. It will take you to the YouTube channel, and There is the video right on the cover, the latest video upload as of the 9th of April. So go check it out. Is it the greatest sounding recording? No, because I am not a great audio engineer. I am not an audio engineer. I am just a dope who likes recording music, and I try and try to get better at it, and I still will never understand how people get their recordings so damn loud, because I compared mine to my other recordings, and I thought, okay, yeah, that's a similar level. And then when I put on any other pop punk record, it's 12 dB louder. It's a night and day difference. I will never understand how people get their recordings that loud. I must just be terrible at mixing my audio sources. I'll never understand it. Okay, 2 embarrassing stories about audio recording and sample rate. I think I forgot one of them. I must have forgotten one of them. No. The first one is, I was sent an audio file and my buddy needed to record vocals for it. I did not check the sample rate. I think it was 48 kilohertz. But when I dropped it into Logic Pro, my session was 44.1. And at this time, Logic Pro didn't notify you, hey, there's a sample rate mismatch. And then we recorded the entire track. Took a couple of hours. And then I sent the vocal stems back to this producer, and they're like, we can't use this because the entire recording is at a different speed, different pitch. This is unusable. That's the first. So now I am always extremely careful. If I am dropping a file in, an audio file into my DAW, that the sample rates are correct, because that was embarrassing. Another one, I won a remix competition, and they had the producers, the people who were compiling the album that ended up going out on CD, needed a lossless file. I didn't know what lossless was at the time. So I asked them, they said, oh yeah, we need a WAV file. I didn't have one. So what I did, I converted an MP3 to a WAV. This was 15 years ago. 15 years ago. Just the most embarrassing crap. And now I am sure I've lost all credibility, but everybody makes stupid mistakes like that. Maybe not that bad, but it still went out on a CD. People still listened to it. It was fine. I was underpaid. What do you expect? At least I did get paid. That's pretty cool. But I got no royalties from that. There used to be these remix sites, and looking back on it, I don't know how ethical some of that was, because you get no points, you get no compensation on the back end. It's just, hey, you want a remix for $100. Cool. Now we're going to sell it? How does that work? Okay. Now that I have thoroughly embarrassed myself and likely lost any modicum of credibility that I had, let's move on to what she had to say. First comment comes from Apache Bro. He says, yeah, the NTH-100s feel like a tank in your hands, and the overall heft and construction can lead to a sense of confidence in their durability. However, I've also experienced the headphones' plastic size locking mechanism cracking and falling apart on both sides. They never entirely fell apart. However, one day I put them on and a piece of plastic fell off, which led to me noticing both sides cracking. I reached out to Sweetwater and they helped me replace them, which was nice. Which is nice. I got that going for me, which is nice. Gungalunga. Which means you should have eternal happiness, eternal salvation. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Whenever I read which was nice or which is nice, I just go back to Bill Murray as the greenskeeper, which is nice. Gungalunga. What am I talking about? The comment goes on. People must be gentle with putting on and taking off the headphones. They're a solid option, but you must be mindful of the locking mechanism. Aside from that, There can sometimes be a small noticeable amount of headphone bleed, but that will mainly depend on how loud of monitoring people want. And we also have a comment from Trusted Tackle Tips. If you need tackle tips, go to the trusted individual. Trusted Tackle Tips. Trusted tackle? I got it right. That sounded very made up. Tackle seems like such a weird word right now. NTH 100s, I'm on my second pair. First pair snapped on the band adjustment clip. They are by far my comfiest headphones. However, their sound is just nice and, as you say, not great for critical listening. There is also now a plug-in microphone for the NTH 100, which I use for Zoom calls. It's convenient, however, not great. Thank you very much for the feedback and real-world experience, Apache Bruh and Trusted Tackle Tips. This is something that I don't have experience with yet. I have not had my headphones break on me, but it's good to know that people have actually had that issue because that will inform people's purchasing decision. It's why I would never recommend these Shure 900s, 940s, I think they were. Third time putting them on, I was taking them off, put them on my head, and they just snapped. I did not trust the reviews online. For obvious reasons, because Amazon reviews are not to be trusted. After I went on an entire rant about this years ago at this point. If I can remember what episode it was, I'll link it. They sent companies that sell you stuff will send out postcards trying to manipulate people. Hey, we'll give you something for free if you give us a 5-star review. Can't trust them. So I didn't trust the reviews. I bought them, and the reviews were accurate. The headphones were not durable. They snapped after a couple of uses. So it's good to know the NTH 100s do have some issues with durability. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. Next, we have a comment from Bujakashka. They say, ever thought of giving high-energy Bandrew Says podcast a paywall? I would Patreon or YouTube member it for sure. I like current Bandrew more. Still, I would watch them and even pay for the privilege. Bujakashka, thank you very much for the comment and the suggestion. I really don't want to put anything from the BSP behind a paywall. I don't think there's any value to those early episodes. I don't think there's much of interest in those early episodes. And as I've said so many times, this podcast is just a hobby. And as soon as I open up a Patreon or a YouTube membership tier for this podcast, it would become much more of an obligation and feel much more burdensome than it currently does. As it stands right now, I feel like I can take a week off. I can take a month off if I want with this podcast. Will the performance of the episode back suffer? Absolutely. Absolutely. It will suffer, at least on the YouTube side. The actual podcast downloads won't have any significant change because the episode is automatically downloaded to people's podcatchers. But on YouTube, where it is very algorithmically driven, I will suffer. The discoverability, the distribution will suffer. Also, excuse the air conditioner. I'm not turning it off. We're dealing with it. But I feel as though I am able, and I am able to take weeks off. With my main channel, I feel a lot more of an obligation to keep a consistent release schedule. I do everything within my power to ensure that I don't miss a week. I don't like missing a week. It makes me feel like I am cheating people. Even if I didn't have memberships, even if I didn't have the Patreon, I would still feel that obligation because that is much more of a focus for me. That is much more of a job to me. Even though I don't view it as a job, it feels a lot more like a job. That makes it sound like I hate doing it. I love making podcastage videos. There are times where I have to kick myself in the rear end to do it. But that's pretty much everything. Sometimes you just have to kick yourself in the rear end to get off your butt and do something. And I think that's why my channel has any following, because I am the only person who is dumb enough to just say, yeah, I'll spend tens of thousands of dollars on microphones and every single week make a video. It's not sustainable because you give up any semblance of a social life. I enjoy it, though, because I don't want a social life. So that is, what am I even talking about? I don't know. Bushakashka, thank you very much for the comment. I don't think I will be doing that. The episodes are fleeting. They were here one day, they're gone the next. And they were privated, I think, over a year ago. Nobody complained. Nobody even noticed. That tells me nobody's hankering to watch them or listen to them. Let's go to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Welcome back to the Ask Bandrew segment, the segment where you ask me, Bandrew, and I attempt to answer you. I attempt and fail. If you have a question that you want me to attempt to answer, go to askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and text questions. I do prefer audio and video because then I don't have to read. I don't have to read. You don't have to listen to me read. You don't have to listen to me speak, and we get to hear how you sound on your equipment. I forgot that fifth plus here. It's a win-win-win-win-win. Win-win-win-win. Let's go to the first submission. We only have one because I am lazy. It is Easter. Yet I am not relaxing. I am recording a video podcast for you to enjoy on Easter, which nobody will watch. If you're a Christian, by the way, happy Easter, happy Resurrection of Jesus Day. Did I get that right? Did I remember Sunday school? Easter, Good Friday is when he was crucified. Easter is when he arose from the dead. Right? Right? I'm embarrassing myself. How fitting, because the one question that I am answering today has to do with church. A statement I never thought I would say. This comes from Enrique. He says, "Hi there. I take the liberty of writing you with a question. I hope this does not bother you. I want to record a small vocal ensemble singing in a church. I am performing myself, so I won't have time to play. Do you have a video about that? Just for you to have an idea, it is in this kind of setting. Thanks in advance." Then he sent a follow-up email. "I sent you my message before it was finished. I meant that I need to do it as simply as possible. I thought a USB mic connected to the tablet might be the best option, but which mic? Thanks a lot in advance, Enrique." The video that Enrique sent, I would love to include a sample of. I would love to share a link to, but it was unlisted, so I am assuming he does not want it out there. Also, I don't know if Enrique was in this ensemble that was performing, but the video is a 5 or 6 person ensemble. They are standing on a slightly elevated platform, and it looks as though it's in a cathedral. It is not a modern Western Christian church where it's just a stage in a 4-wall plaster-style room. This is a cathedral. And I have to admit, the performance was beautiful. The visuals were beautiful. And the sound of the reverberations in the cathedral were beautiful. I'm not embarrassed to admit I may or may not have gotten a little misty listening to it. It was that good. It was that awe-inspiring. And it really makes you understand, okay, I understand why they built those cathedrals, because goodness gracious, that is something to behold. I get it. So as far as what you're asking, I don't necessarily think that a USB microphone would be the best option. The reason I am saying that, most tablets with the native video software, the native video app, they don't give you any microphone control, at least on the Apple side. I don't know about Galaxy. I don't know about Android, any of those tablets. Maybe they have all of the microphone controls and you can set the gain, you can set the bit rate, the sample rate, all of that. On iOS, nothing. Nothing. You would either need a third-party app, or you're just going to have to wing it. If you were to go with a USB microphone, I would recommend against a USB microphone that has any kind of software related to it. That pretty much removes any modern USB mics. So I am thinking something like the classic Blue Yeti. This is one of those situations where I think that would be probably the ideal pick because it has the gain on the microphone, it has the monitoring on the microphone, doesn't have DSP processing, and the main reason I'm recommending it has the stereo capsule, stereo microphones, and when you're in a room like that, I can't imagine a single time where I would say, I'd sound better in mono in this kind of room. I could never imagine saying that. I want stereo. I want as much of the information from the room as physically and technologically possible. So probably the Blue Yeti, if we're going USB. But because I am saying I don't recommend using the tablet's camera software because you don't have any mic control, I think an external recorder would probably be the best solution. I have it. I have not used it yet. It is still in the box. Something like the Zoom H1N because it's a portable recorder. Very simple, very stable, and it has a 90-degree XY microphone on the top, so you're getting that stereo recording. The Zoom H6 series has a detachable stereo capsule, and if I am remembering correctly, that allows you to switch between 90 and 120 degree XY. So depending on how wide you want your stereo image, you could play around with that. I don't think the H1N allows you to change the degree of the stereo mics. But because the room is so nice, I know you say you don't have the time to play around with it, you want to set it and forget it kind of thing because you're performing. I understand that. I want to explore the idea, and I pulled out a book and I referenced it because, caveat, I do not do vocal ensemble recordings. I do not record choirs. I don't think I've ever been in a cathedral, although now I would love to go, especially after reading, I already forgot the name of the book. It was my favorite book of last year about building a cathedral, the Kingsbridge trilogy, whatever it is. Can't remember it. But I want to go to a cathedral, but I've never been in one. I've never recorded a choir in a cathedral. But what I would want to do is do some kind of spaced microphone set. And if I am not mistaken, small diaphragm condensers are the typical choice for choir. Correct me if I am wrong in the comments on YouTube, because I am sure there is going to be an actual audio engineer saying, Bandrew, actually, you're an idiot. Shut up. SDCs? Stupid. We use LDCs. I would probably want to go with a set of small diaphragm condensers. And in my space, I typically go for cardioid or super or hypercardioid. In a space like that, that's designed to sound that beautiful, I'd probably go omni. I'm going omnidirectional microphones, and I am not going as flat as I like in my room, because when you're doing diffuse field or free field recording, diffuse field, you typically want a bit of a brighter sound. So I am likely going to go for the Neumann SDCs, whatever model number the omnidirectional is. That is what I would want to try in that environment. You could do the XY 90 or 120. I think the book also recommended Bloomline. I've never done Bloomline because I if I'm not mistaken, I think that's 2 figure eights in a 90 degree, so you're capturing essentially all around it. But as far as what I would want to try, 2 omnidirectional small diaphragm condensers as a spaced pair to try to get a wider sound. I'm really not too keen on 90 degree XY because I think it sounds a bit too narrow, at least on acoustic instruments. So I would want spaced pair I don't know the math that goes into determining what kind of distance needs to be between the microphones, how far they need to be off the floor, how far they need to be away from the individuals on stage. I don't know any of that math. If I was actually doing this, I would research it and determine the math, find out what math needs to go into it, run all the calculations on my physical calculator, and then play around with it. Thank you for the question, though, Enrique. This was very fitting that I answer it on Easter. And thank you for sharing that video. I wish I could share it with everybody else, but being that it was unlisted, I'm not going to. Now I want to go look up choir recordings in cathedrals because, goodness gracious, that'll set off the waterworks. All right. That is it for this week's episode because I'm a bit lazy. I appreciate you for all coming by. I hope if you do celebrate Easter that you have a magnificent Easter. I hope you get all your praising and all your worship done. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk at you. I love you so much. You are the greatest human being that's ever existed. Talk to you in a week or so. Bye-bye. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.